And I say that and because the operative phrase there is a member of the opposite sex. Because the thing is, we are two men talking about it from a man's perspective. The other aspect of it is there's also it from a woman's perspective. If you are a woman and you have men who are under you as subordinates, hey, the rules apply to you too. Okay, like it's very important for you to have like to CYA. It's like you don't be alone. And then nah, that's actually an interesting point. But then like flip that around too. If you're a woman subordinate, like you're a woman and you have a male who's in a leadership position above you, don't be alone with him. Don't like it's one of those situations of if he's like starting to like do things where he's like, hey, let's go and talk in this room. Okay, don't close the door. Like it's all of these little things of you keep like you got to keep your eye out on this stuff because there are terrible men and there are terrible women out there who will go and will destroy people. And honestly, for on the men's perspective, men it's all about it's all about sex. I mean, that's how we're driven.
Yeah, most often, powerful men, successful men, are oversexed.
And for women, it's a manipulation thing. It's like
This is the woman's tool. It's part of the woman's tool set. It's natural.
I mean that's just I'm sure some of my friends who are women who are listening, they're probably like freaking out on me right now about this, but it's like this is what I've observed, okay? Like
It's out of the feminist tool book. Use your powers.
and you know, in a lot of ways, I'm kind of like I'm all like in a lot of ways, I'm for that in the sense of if that's what you like, if that's what you are naturally good at and naturally like gifted at, and you want like you want to do something good, manipulation is perfectly okay, especially if you're doing it for something good and you're trying to like get somebody to do something that's good, like ethical. That's what I'm saying, like something ethical. Like
Yeah, yeah, and being winning at your whatever you think is right is ethically right in your mind. So use all the tools in your tool test chest. The idiot guy that's married that falls for that, good luck.
and you know what, he may love it.
And he may enjoy it, right? And he probably does, and he'll suffer later. And he lives and learn. And when he's living out of a box with alimony and all that, that's his problem.
Phil, is that a personal story?
No, I fortunately I've always been like I'm for my wife, and everything I do is for her and the family, and I pray to God that He doesn't let me screw up that relationship. And very personal concept is that in my relationship, it's a threesome. It's my wife, myself, and God. And I don't want to mess up that relationship by bringing something into it that doesn't belong. And I'm like any other guy. I have weaknesses, and I am sexed, right? I'm driven. I'm a hard player, but it's something that's I recognize in myself that's a challenge that has to be monitored. So I think every guy needs to watch himself, know what his weaknesses are.
And all of that, it takes a significant amount of maturity to recognize in yourself because we most successful marriages, you have to recognize a lot of what you just said as a man, and and I say that as someone who had failed relationship partly because of some of the stuff that you said. So I learned the hard way. I laugh, but you know what? Hey,
Yeah, and sometimes it's not the guy, sometimes it's the guy. But
well, yeah, and oh gosh, yeah, that's the other aspect of it. Ugh. Anyway, moving on.
I maybe afterwards I'll tell you a story of a friend. If you remind me, I had a friend that's an office police officer. So if you want to hear the story, ask me later. But yeah, the it's really the tools of a woman is important. She should be able to utilize them in a way that's natural. I don't like hiring women, but I also love hiring women because they bring in a perspective that is different than mine. And when she's in her element, it really brings a great balance to everything that a team does. So a team that's just all men is going to miss a lot of things. A team that's all women is going to miss a lot of things. This is why we value diversity. Um, it comes at a cost. Diversity always comes at a cost. Sometimes it's worth it. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes diversity is just bad. Right? Not all diversity is good. That said, back to the topic of where should we go back to after that one?
Well, so all of that is based upon everything that we just talked about is based upon building relationships with people. And when you build those relationships, you build trust and everything, and how important that trust is. And so with even even if you are a leader and you have women who are subordinates to you, you have to build a relationship with them at some point. Now you need to you need to be careful about how you do that, as everything that we just said, but you have to build that relationship because you have to have that level of trust, because if you don't have that trust there, you're not going to be able to accomplish your mission as a team. And that is a lot of why they were talking, why they jump back and forth in this section between their training and the battlefield, because they're indicating how much trust they had to build. And so getting in, so coming back into, I guess I can't really say present day, into the situation that they are dealing with in Ramadi. Go for it.
Awesome. So essentially, the next thing he points out is that this relationship doesn't come easy, like Alan is saying. It comes through fire, comes through suffering, it comes through working under hard situations and dealing with pressures, being forced into situations that are uncomfortable, that are chaotic, that are insane, right? So he goes into that for a little bit, and then they kind of jump into their mount training. And I've never been to mount training. That would have been so fun. I guess it's in Kentucky. Probably I would have had a hard time getting past the bourbon, but that's okay. If I was so dedicated, what they joke about it in parts of the book where they're like, yeah, these guys they go out, they party all night, and then they get up at 5 in the morning or 4 in the morning, and they're like
Yeah.
you never knew they were trash. Um, and I'm like, this was the part. This is Kentucky. This is what he's talking about. They were in Kentucky when he's talking about this, and he just didn't want to say it. So pieces are coming together, and it's just it talks about how it talks about some of the scenarios. Not some of the scenarios. They didn't really get into scenarios too much, but he got into the principles of the intense pressure, dealing with chaotic situations, and where the guys were talking about complaining that the instructors are
Oh,
cheating. They're
yeah,
doing
yeah.
cheap shots. They're doing unfair practices, and it's so unfair. I can just imagine a bunch of big tough SEALs saying, "It's so unfair. They can't
You
do
need to use
that."
that voice more often. That's hilarious.
I
Good.
will. I will for sure. That's my Socratic review voice. Um, but it's not
Right.
supposed to be fair, right? Now, if we take this back to business, right, your enemy, your competition, isn't going to play fair with you. Some of them may play ethically, but even they are going to try to find the fringes of that to
Hmm.
find your weaknesses and exploit them because that's business, right? That's taking food out of your mouth is sometimes putting it
Hmm.
in their mouth, right? So this is both military and real life situations. I think the
Life isn't fair. Get used to it. It
Life's not
Yeah,
fair.
there it was.
Suffer through
It's
it.
honestly a lot of it is a lot of that phrase is kind of one of the things that my parents drilled into me as I was growing up is life isn't fair, move on, or things like that. And it's the older I get and the more I observe reality and observe life, and I recognize, yeah, life isn't fair, and it doesn't matter. It just does not matter if life is fair or not, because
Oh, it's, you're so sweet. I'm like, life is fair and you got what you
I don't
deserve.
feel like that happens, honestly, with a lot of people. That a lot of people get what they deserve. I really don't. I have seen many people in leadership type positions, since we're talking about leadership and stuff, who make horrible, stupid decisions and who bully their subordinates around, and they don't get punished for it. They don't get, like, nothing comes back and bites them about it. They end up failing upwards. I mean, that's
It well, it still affects them. It comes around and goes around. And if you're working in a situation um, where you're allowing that to happen, it's like the relationship with a narcissist. You both stay in that relationship for a reason. And if you don't have the skills to get out of that relationship, then you need to look at your life and maybe go to dev slopes or something and get some skills that transfer and not be so darn desperate. But really, my opinion, and I'm my wife. This makes my wife crazy because I'm like, if you're in a bad situation today in the world, you can almost always, uh, in a modern Western society, you can basically get out of it. There's nothing keeping you there.
I agree 100% that you can get out of that situation. But the thing is, that person who is essentially being a bully, or who's in the wrong, I don't like, usually I don't see that person ever getting punished. I really don't see it happening. Because and exactly. And that to me is
And maybe they won't, right? And maybe they won't in a way that's obvious. But there's in my faith, right? God judges. God does punishment, right? Sometimes we don't get to see it, and sometimes we don't understand it. Uh, but it's true. I've been in these situations where it was bad. I got out of it. The person kept doing their own stuff, and I looked back like 10, 20 years later. I'm like, oh, that happened to them. Wow, that's much worse than what I thought was appropriate.
my view on that is you are the punishment does not necessarily come in this lifetime, is what it is ultimately. Yeah, and that's what. But like, when I say, when I personally say, like, life isn't fair, I mean the mortal life. Like, that's the way I view it, because here, yeah, because a lot of people, and this is one of the a big problem with people, um is a lot of people have a utopian vision of this life. They expect and want and desire and think that this life should be 100% fair. I mean, hence the whole desire for communism type societies. Excuse me. Because to them, they look at it and it's like, oh, it's more fair. I'm the one doing the work. I should get paid more, or I should get such and such, things like that. Like, I heard that a lot when I was working in the shipyard. I heard that a lot from a lot of people, and I'm kind of like, no, that's not how this works. That's not how it goes. You want to get paid more.
Right? You sold that chunk of time for that much money. You got what you asked for.
It's funny. I actually just recorded a YouTube video on time, and why. Yeah, it's kind of like some of the discussions that we've had in the past. Like, the reason why I use a Mac for all of my development is because it just works. I don't have to mess around with a lot of stuff, and so, and time is money. And in order for me to maximize my productivity, I need something that saves me time. And I don't have to go and fight around with it to do my work. So that was the whole point of the video. Anyway,
Time is money, and there is no way around that.
it is. Um, boy, I let's keep going because we haven't even really gotten into the principle.
I wanted to ask you a couple questions.
Oh, you want to do you want to do that now?
Can I kind of interrupt for some fun? Yeah, I'm so sorry. I can't hold it.
Well, we haven't even really gotten to the whole principle of the decentralized command. I feel like this one's going to go on to another episode. What do you feel like?
I just want, okay, I'll save these questions for later because I really want to get through the rest of the book because it's also good. And
It is, but this like the principles here.
if I play favoritism, we're going to go back to chapter 4. So
Or which one's chapter 4? Oh yeah. Oh well. All right. So where did we leave off?
so we're talking about mounts and how it's unfair that you treat me like this. I can't take it. Stop that, you evil trainer person, trying to save my life and make me be disciplined. Um, terrible, terrible people. Um, the so I just love that idea of training in an unfair way, right? Just in a safe, like I think being considerate of the health of your people while you're training them is very important. But training fairly and letting them win is nothing to do with fairness in training. So the sometimes learning the best thing you can learn is how to fail gracefully, especially in the military, especially in business, especially in life. The more I think about it, learning to fail gracefully is almost more important than learning to succeed quickly.
It's very true.
So, not that I want one without the other. Just when I was in college and one instructor was making fun of me, and he's like, "Phil, you got such an ego." But let me put it this way: if you were right more than 50% of the time, you'd be rich. You wouldn't have to be here, right? And I'm like, "Dang." And then later on, I got married, and I realized I wasn't even right 1% of the time.
Marriage does that.
Yeah, right. So I should have learned how to fail gracefully. It would have been saved me so much frustration. You know what? There should be a boot camp for guys going to get married, where it teaches you how to be married and fail gracefully,
I think they call that marriage counseling.
because those girls have memories.
Did you hear? I think they call that marriage counseling.
Marriage counseling, pre-marriage counseling. Yeah, it's either that or you see the psychologist afterwards. So one or the other. Yeah, divorce counseling. Mm, whatever. Pay now, pay later. Sooner or later, you're going to pay. Uh,
Doesn't matter.
the I'm having fun. I am tearing up the sidebars today. Later on, I want to show you my notes. I started using the smart notes technique, or part of it. So it was interesting. We'll talk about that later because I don't know how well I executed. I'm sure I'm doing terrible at it. But
I know. I'm kind of like let's just finish. Let's just finish talking about the story, and then in the next episode we can dive into the principle of decentralized command because I think we covered a lot of really good stuff on this side of the episode. So
yeah, we're at 48 minutes. Okay, so it talks about where leaders realized that they had to rely on their subordinates and execute based off of a good understanding of the broader mission. Uh, and they go into they realize they had to execute based off the commander's intent and the standard operating procedures. So those are essentially like the two keys to making it so that leaders could delegate. And this comes up because the way they did it is that they'd give a leader the chance to lead 35 people or so in a complex battlefield where things are intentionally insane, and quickly the leader and subordinates learn that it can't happen this way. You can't micromanage 30 people in a complex field, especially where you can't see them, see what they're doing. They can't communicate directly with you in many cases. They may lose radio. They may lose key players. Uh, just you got to have these essential boundaries that you operate in, and that was, I think essentially how he um, encourages the subordinate leaders to execute independently in a decentralized way. And then they kind of go into a little bit more about how they do it. They talk about dividing the teams up into small groups, 4 to 5 people. At one point, he says 4 to 6 people. He says in another place. Um, I think I think he said for SEALs they could do 4 to 6 people. I think he's really thinking six, maybe four for specialty teams, and then I think he's thinking like outside people should maybe do 1 to 5 people because they're not SEALs, but there may be some talented ones anyways.
So what he points out is that humans can only really manage 6 to 8 people at a time, which means that the optimal team size is about 4 to 6 people with a clear leader. That's the important thing with it with this. Because yeah, sure, you could try and create a team of 8 people with one leader, but you are definitely stretching that leader out pretty thin at that point, and you don't want to do that because that leads to the popular term today is that leads to burnout. So anyway, yeah.
And I think it really there's two things. It's less on the leader's ability to direct people and vision and see things. Of course, that comes into effect. Some people can't manage themselves, right? Past that, I think it's how rigid is the person's task, how much creativity and how much chaos is actually possible in a group. So the more chaos that is possible in a group, in a team that they may experience, the smaller number of people that you can manage.
So I agree. I would also throw in it depends a lot also on your subordinates. So at one point, I was managing a team of 3 people and 3 or 4 people, and that was it. That was all I could deal with, and it was not because of my ability so much, and it wasn't so much also because of the chaos that was going on. It was because those people needed clear direction. They needed micromanaging, which was not something I wanted to do, but that's what they needed. I had to be on them all the time and saying, this is exactly what you need to do. I had to go and pay attention to everything that they were doing. But I feel like if you have a team that is filled with more self managers, people who are self starting, and can like do their own thing, you can increase that team size a bit more. And that does that itself increases your team's ability to deal with the chaos. Is the self management, the people who essentially take ownership of themselves and their job are the ones who they're the ones who allow you to have larger teams, and then they end up also allowing you to be able to handle more and more chaos. You can handle a lot of chaos too with people who need clear direction, as long as you, as the leader, are able to give those people that clear direction. And that's the important aspect right there.